Amsterdam, one of the most visited cities in the world. 8 million tourists a year, canals, museums, tulips, and the cocaine capital of Europe. The Port of Rotterdam, 45 minutes south, is the largest port on the continent. Every year, hundreds of millions of kilos of cargo pass through it. And hidden inside that cargo, investigators estimate, flows more than a third of all cocaine entering Europe. The organization behind much of that flow is not Italian, it's not Russian, it's not even Colombian. It grew up in the social housing blocks of Amsterdam, built by the children of Moroccan immigrants who came to the Netherlands in the 1970s with nothing, who watched their parents work in factories while the Dutch economy boomed around them, and who, in the 1990s, decided to build their own economy. They call it the Mocro Maffia, and it is one of the most violent, most sophisticated, and least understood criminal organizations in the world. Today, we climb every rank, from a teenager running packages through the streets of Amsterdam to the man who controlled a third of Europe's cocaine supply from a luxury apartment in Dubai. Your life has every rank in the Mocro Maffia. Rank 1, the runner. Koerier. You are 16 years old. You grew up here, in one of the neighborhoods that tourists never see. Your parents came from the Rif Mountains of northern Morocco, or from Suriname, or from Turkey. They worked hard, they played by the rules, and they still ended up in the same apartments, in the same streets, with the same ceiling. You are not going to make that mistake. As a courier, a runner, your job is simple. You carry packages, drugs, cash, and sometimes phones or SIM cards, from one address to another. You don't ask what's inside. You don't need to know. You get paid 200, sometimes 300 euros per delivery. Cash, no questions, no contract. The Mocro Maffia built its recruitment pipeline in these housing estates, not through fear, through aspiration. The bosses drove expensive cars. They wore designer clothes. They had status in a neighborhood where status was otherwise impossible to achieve. The Dutch author Martijn Schrijver, who coined the term Mocro Maffia in his 2014 book, described it clearly. These young men are not fundamentally different from bankers or entrepreneurs. They are ambitious. They are organized. They just operate in an economy where the only accessible path to wealth runs through the underworld. You have a scooter, a phone, and a route. You don't think of yourself as part of a criminal organization. You think of yourself as someone finally earning real money. Rank 2, the dealer. Straatdealer. You have proven yourself. You showed up on time. You kept your mouth shut. You didn't spend your money in obvious ways, and so you got promoted. As a street dealer, you now control a small territory, a corner, a block, a park. You sell directly to users, cocaine, MDMA, cannabis, and increasingly heroin substitutes and prescription pills. Amsterdam's drug market is one of the most sophisticated in the world. Consumers have standards. Quality matters. The Mocro Maffia's rise was built on product quality. When they entered the cocaine market in the 1990s, they brought a direct connection to Moroccan cannabis networks that were already embedded in the Rif region, one of the world's largest cannabis-producing areas. That same network became the foundation for cocaine distribution. The families knew how to move product, how to build trust with suppliers, and how to keep operations quiet. You earn more now, maybe 1,000 euros a week, but you are also visible. Arrests at street level are common. You are the most exposed part of the operation. The organization doesn't care much if you get arrested. You know very little. You can't betray what you don't know. You are in the organization's cold calculation? Expendable. You know this. And you decide it's still worth it. On rank 3, the enforcer, Afrekener. The Mocro Maffia's violence shocked the Netherlands in a way that organized crime had not done in decades. Between 2012 and 2024, more than 200 people were murdered in what Dutch investigators called the Mocro Oorlog. The Mocro War. Rival factions fighting over cocaine shipments stolen from the port of Antwerp. Debts unpaid. Betrayals real and perceived. Bodies found in burned cars. Severed heads left outside cafes. Men shot in front of their children in broad daylight. As an Afrekener, an enforcer or hitman, you are the organization's most extreme tool. You are called when words have failed, when a message needs to be sent that cannot be misunderstood. The Mocro Maffia used a motorcycle gang called Caloh Wagoh as its primary execution unit. Caloh Wagoh members were contracted like professionals, paid per job, operating with military discipline, recruited from the Antillean criminal community in the Netherlands. Several Caloh Wagoh members were eventually convicted of multiple murders on behalf of Ridwan Taghi's organization. But what made the violence truly terrifying was its indiscriminate escalation. When a Crown witness agreed to testify against Taghi, the response was methodical. First his lawyer was murdered, then his brother was murdered. Then a journalist who had supported the witness was shot on a public street in central Amsterdam. The message was not just to the witness, it was to everyone watching. The Netherlands had never seen anything like it, and the world was beginning to pay attention. Rank 4. The Port Operator. Havenman. The Port of Rotterdam is the largest port in Europe. Every year it handles nearly 500 million tons of cargo, and it is the single most important strategic asset the Mocro Maffia controls. As a Havenman, a port operative, you are the invisible key that unlocks Europe's drug supply chain. You work inside the port. You are a dock worker, a customs inspector, a logistics coordinator, a truck driver, and you are corrupt. The mechanics are precise. Cocaine arrives from South America, primarily Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, hidden inside legitimate cargo, fruit shipments, timber, industrial equipment. The cartels pack the drugs at the origin point, but the drugs only reach their destination if someone on the European end knows which container to retrieve, where it will be inspected, and how to divert it before customs gets there. That is your job. You receive a container number, a berth location, a window of time. You ensure the right package is removed before it enters the formal inspection queue. You are paid tens of thousands of euros per shipment. The DEA estimated that Taghi's organization controlled roughly a third of all cocaine entering Europe through Rotterdam and Antwerp. That is an almost incomprehensible volume. Hundreds of tons per year, made possible entirely by corruption inside the ports. The Dutch government has spent years trying to break this network. Investigators, internal affairs units, salary increases for port workers. The infiltration persists because no legitimate salary can compete with what the Mocro Maffia offers. My rank 5, the money launderer. Witwasser. The Mocro Maffia generates hundreds of millions of euros in cash every year, and cash in large quantities is a problem. As a Witwasser, a money launderer, you are the organization's financial architect. Your job is to transform criminal profits into assets that can be held, displayed, and eventually sold without attracting attention. The methods are sophisticated. Real estate, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Antwerp, and increasingly Dubai and Morocco, purchased through shell companies and intermediaries. Restaurant and nightclub chains used as cash-intensive businesses where criminal money can be mixed with legitimate revenue. Cryptocurrency exchanges and informal hawala networks used to move money across borders without touching the formal banking system. And the Mocro Maffia's financial network is genuinely international. Taghi managed significant operations from Dubai, a city that for years offered minimal cooperation with European law enforcement. His organization used Moroccan notary offices to purchase properties through his brother Don Rodo. Surinamese connections, including links to a former Surinamese president, provided additional banking and logistics infrastructure. Your work is largely invisible and extraordinarily lucrative. You are also the organization's most educated and most legally exposed member. A single audit trail, a single whistleblower, a single encrypted message decrypted by investigators, and your entire carefully constructed empire collapses. You know the risks. You build the structures anyway. On rank 6, the clan lieutenant. Rechterhand. The Mocro Maffia is not a single organization. It is a constellation of clans. Family-based criminal networks that cooperate, compete, and occasionally go to war with each other. The major clans include the Taghi organization, the Buyakricha network, and the Ayat Susan organization, among others. Each is structured around blood ties and regional loyalty. Each has its own leadership, its own territory, its own supply chain relationships. As a Rechterhand or right-hand or lieutenant, you are the operational nerve center of your clan. The boss sets strategy, you execute it. You manage the day-to-day logistics of drug shipments, personnel, finances, and disputes. You are the link between the boss who tries to remain invisible and the street-level network that makes money. And one of the most remarkable figures at this level was Naima Jilal, nicknamed the Godmother of Cocaine, a woman who became one of the most powerful brokers in the European drug trade, connecting Mocro Maffia clans with South American cartels. She brokered deals between rival organizations. She controlled shipment information. She was, investigators said, essential to the entire network. In October 2019, Naima Jilal disappeared. Images later circulated online, widely reported as being of her body. She was allegedly killed by organizations who suspected her of tipping off rivals to their shipments. In the Mocro Maffia, even the most indispensable people are not safe. Rank 7. The Fugitive Boss. Voortvluchtige. For years, the Dutch police knew exactly who Taghi was. They had his messages. Decrypted from the Enicom encrypted phone network that Dutch and Canadian authorities cracked in 2016. They had his voice. They had records of his orders. What they didn't have was him. Taghi operated from Dubai because the UAE at the time offered minimal extradition cooperation with European authorities. He moved between luxury apartments and private villas. He communicated through layers of encrypted devices. He was, according to the DEA, running a super cartel, a coalition that also included the Irish Kinahan gang, the Italian Camorra, and Bosnian drug networks, collectively controlling an enormous share of European cocaine distribution. The Mocro Oorlog, the street war in the Netherlands, Koerier was being directed from his apartment in the Gulf. In December 2019, acting on intelligence shared by the Dutch government with Emirati authorities, Taghi was arrested in Dubai. He was extradited to the Netherlands, held in the most secure prison in the country, the EBI in Voet, under conditions so restrictive that his communication with the outside world was supposed to be impossible. It wasn't. Prosecutors later revealed that Taghi had continued to communicate with co-conspirators from his cell, allegedly ordering further violence, including an escape attempt and additional threats. In February 2024, after the largest criminal trial in Dutch history, Ridwan Taghi was sentenced to life in prison. His son Faisal was convicted in January 2026 for involvement in the organization and planning his father's escape. His cousin Firas, considered the de facto number 2, was arrested in Spain in 2025, then released due to a Spanish court procedural error, and is still at large. The organization Taghi built is damaged. It is not dead. Rank 8. The Witness Kroongetuige. This is the 8th rank, and it isn't a rank in the Mocro Maffia at all. It is the rank that breaks it. Nabil B was a mid-level member of the Taghi organization. In 2017, he made a decision that almost no one in this world ever makes. He agreed to become a crown witness for the Dutch prosecution. He would testify about everything he knew: murders, drug shipments, internal communications, the structure of the entire operation. The Taghi organization's response was immediate and methodical. In September 2018, Nabil B's lawyer, Dirk Wiersum, was shot dead outside his Amsterdam home. In March 2018, Nabil B's brother, who had nothing to do with the criminal world, was murdered in Utrecht. Nabil B did not withdraw his testimony. In July 2021, Peter R. de Vries, the most famous crime journalist in the Netherlands, who had been supporting Nabil B and acting as his confidant, was shot 5 times in the head on the Leidsecourt in Amsterdam city center, in broad daylight, immediately after appearing on television. He died 9 days later. The Netherlands was shaken to its core. Princess Amalia, the heir to the Dutch throne, was placed under protective security after intelligence indicated Taghi's organization had discussed kidnapping her as leverage. Nabil B still did not withdraw his testimony, and in February 2024, his testimony, alongside hundreds of decrypted messages, put Ridwan Taghi in prison for life. The 8th rank is not a criminal rank. It is the rank of someone who chose to stand against everything the Mocro Maffia represents, and paid an almost unimaginable price for it, from a teenager on a scooter in Amsterdam-West to a life sentence in the most secure prison in the Netherlands. The Mocro Maffia was not built by monsters. It was built by people who grew up in a city that told them the ladder was not for them, and who decided to build their own ladder. The cost of that decision, to the men who built it, to the families of those they killed, to the witnesses who dared to speak, to a Dutch journalist shot on a city street, is still being counted. Ridwan Taghi is in prison for life, His organization still moves cocaine through the Port of Rotterdam. His cousin is still free somewhere in Europe. The ladder still exists. Someone is always climbing. Rank after rank.